Paxton, how's it going?
Just another day in paradise. How are you doing?
Just happy to be here.
Brandon saw me sprinting past his booth to my booth, so I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you. Meetings go over, we get it. When one happens, then the next one happens, and the next one happens. We did not coordinate outfits today, but still looks great. Real redo pride, living with the black. So it's good. Okay, I'll kick us off here, Paxton. I'll give you a little intro. Add anything to it on top of that. But Paxton heads up our support and AI tool here at Redo. I've been doing that for over a year now, right? Building some incredible stuff. Very excited to dive into how it's working with merchants, how they're utilizing it, what's winning, what's not winning, and then what's cooking, what's Paxton building for the future, and what gets him most excited. So that's what we'll jump into and kind of hear the story. Anything else, I guess, on background or what brought you to Redo that you want to add before we jump in, Paxton?
No, I think it's an incredibly fascinating topic, and it does change the way that we work, being able to solve these problems with AI. So I'm excited to chat about it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So you are frequently on calls with customers talking through the pains that they're dealing with, what they're trying to solve, everything that they're trying to do customer support related, how to integrate AI both on sales, both on post sales, how it all works. As you chat with people, what is the most common pain point and things that people are trying to solve right now?
That's a really good question. I mean, I feel like the word support is a trigger for pain. Like when you
Yeah.
hear the word support, you think long calls, you think waiting queues. And so the pain point's pretty clear. As a customer, you don't want to interact with support. You've thought about returning something 4 times. You finally get to the website, finally contact support, and you're fired up and ready to launch some profanities at this company's way. As a brand, as you're scaling, it's kind of the last thing you want to think about. You want to be thinking about branding and marketing and your product and your customer base rather than being reactive to requests and problems that are coming up. The brand doesn't really want to have to service it. The customer doesn't really want to have to interact with it. But then we have to insert this function to perform it. So I think one other way to iterate that pain point for customers is with Amazon and Apple. They've set the standard of immediate responses every time. And what we're trying to do is bring that functionality to a smaller, medium-sized business so that they can perform that as well. 90% of customers expect an immediate response. We'll cite our sources later underneath. I think that was the Forrester study, but 90% expect an immediate response from brands because that's what they're conditioned for. And if they don't get it, less likely to purchase. And if you get in two negative experiences, 86% are likely to abandon brands. You're thinking customers are more impatient and less loyal than they have been in the past. And so now we're trying to kind of fill that gap. And we've been doing that in a couple different ways.
It's a tough recipe when you're trying to scale an e-commerce brand where you have to be faster and you have to do it in a way that people are happy with your brand. Otherwise, they're just going to jump to the next competitor. And
Sure.
with acquisition costs going up, everything being so expensive to get somebody in the door, being able to keep them in the door is such a huge piece of being able to scale your brand. And so being able to do it quickly in a way that feels still very personal, because you can understand like some of the frustrations of an AI can't necessarily answer the question directly, or you can't get to a person when you need to, or other stuff that comes up. It's still a friction point that a lot of people are going to jump off and just not want to interact with the brand again. So big pains, but necessary things to solve because there's always going to be customer interaction. We always want to be talking with people that are engaging with our brand and building a relationship. And ideally, how do we turn that into a positive experience and a retention tool instead of just like a has to be done kind of a cost center for the organization? So what what I guess have you previously built that's been addressing all of these pain points as you've been building this product over the past several months to a year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the brand, I'm going to dial in on something you said there too, is you're always seeing it um as an expense to be had. But those communications that you're having, like you said, is the one opportunity that you actually have as a brand to connect with the customer. Really, the 2 times you're communicating with them is either directly through marketing or through support. Those are actually the 2 times that you're chatting with your customer and get to communicate your brand. So it kind of blurs the lines between support and sales a little bit, but is it okay if I maybe share my screen and I'll just show off a couple things that we've recently done to solve these problems?
Yeah, jump in.
Okay. I didn't know if that was our mojo, but I'm going to do it. So if we come in here, I'm going to show off a couple different examples, but from a human side, it's like, how do we allow them to know as much about the customer as quickly as possible to then be able to address them in a tailored way? We're trying to do everything AI native. If the AI can't get to it first, then we want to enable and augment the human team and those specialists for the complicated questions to be able to handle those incredibly well. So, I mean, when you opened up to this ticketing screen, you're already seeing AI in action. We have the response waiting for the team that can be trained upon and will iterate. So that way it's ready to go. It's more of an approval process rather than a creation process. But then what we've done really recently that I think merchants might be interested in knowing a little bit more about is sentiment analysis across the board. And we're doing some cool things with social listening and so on. What that looks like is when we're scraping all of the messages, how are we going to be able to, at an individual level and an aggregate level, tell you how your brand sentiment is doing? And so for this customer, what that looks like is a summary of the message and a sentiment of how they're feeling. If I hover over it, it looks like customer expressed frustration initially, but gave no follow-up sentiment after support resolved offered a remedy. So they're in an okay spot, but they're not delighted. So it's like, then how do we level up your team and give them responses that wouldn't have just solved the problem, but also driven a repeat purchase? So that's what you're looking like on the support side. And on the AI side, without diving into it too much, I mean, if it's not just about providing the exact same experience, it's about how do we provide a better experience. So AI has the benefit of never having to eat, sleep, drink, and so the immediacy solves the immediacy problem. The second part, though, of like negative brand experiences, we want to, in every instance it can, communicate the brand essentially with no friction. It's like a game of telephone when you have a team between you and your customer. AI kind of allows you to get past that frictionful barrier and immediately kind of inject your brand into that person, into that conversation and that customer that you're working with. So then on the front end, it's faster, it's personalized, and we're getting more and more knowledge on the website that we're integrating in. So what buttons are they clicking on? What have they viewed recently? And then we feed that into the AI model to keep it hyper personalized. So two things, augmenting the humans on the support side to make that as frictionless as possible to fulfill kind of those two pain points of customers. And then on the fully AI side, it's the immediacy and the unique things that we can either do with data or actions.
Very cool. Very cool. So what you're showing as well is it's happening post-purchase. You have it on the website pre-purchase. Talk to me about the impact that that has as well on being able to have those interactions both before somebody makes a purchase and after somebody makes a purchase.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one thing that is tied to our product, and this is actually something that maybe everyone who's going to watch this or listen to this, it's kind of like listen to this part is probably the most important part. Is why is Redo one of one? It's because we're building what we consider the Redo record or the Redo customer record. And the reason why I'm bringing that up in context to Brandon's question is how are we taking a customer and instead of giving them separate softwares and separate experiences when they get marketed to, pre-sale on the website, post-sale with support, once they're trying to repurchase something, with a record, how do you make it so that's completely cohesive? So for the customer, it doesn't feel like they're getting different messaging consistently. And we want to avoid the faux pas of imagine you have a frustrated customer messaging in and then they get a marketing message. Well, you just wasted that opportunity to turn them into a repeat customer. So the redo customer record, to go back to that, is what we're doing is we're aggregating all of that information. So website traffic information, we aggregate that in. The support tickets, if you even connect your channels and whether or not you use the redo support tool, if you can get that into our system, great, our marketing becomes better and so on. So you can't disconnect the support experience from the pre-sales experience, but in the past we have because we were just making softwares that were meant to make people faster rather than building softwares that felt like for the customer it was all the same experience. Hopefully that wasn't too high level. It was like
No,
hit the
it's
middle of
great. It's great. It's interesting because as you think about customer retention, historically it's always been what do we do after somebody makes a purchase to be able to keep them into our brand. But in reality, the touch points that we have pre-purchase are almost just as important with building a relationship with a brand or helping them know that we know them or we can personalize their experience. So support is a unique role where it kind of is an umbrella that touches everything, right? It doesn't really fit pre-purchase, it doesn't really fit at purchase, it doesn't really fit post-purchase, but it kind of like encompasses everything. And so being able to have that immediacy, the personalization, knowing how to make it sound like your brand and your voice and interact with the customers the way that you would if you could hire 150 of you to go and do it around the clock at all times is something that just helps build that loyalty, I think, long term, which rolls right into what you were saying with the customer record of making sure that we have that personalization from beginning to end, and then as they repeat, keeping them personalized.
Yeah. And is it okay if I reiterate something there?
Do it.
I think that like a key takeaway there is whether you're using Redo support as your main functionality or not, it's a great thing to connect into such that we can use that customer data at every touch point. This is what makes Redo one of one is we have unique data from all these touch points and we can do unique actions for them too. So in beta right now, it's not live, but it's in beta and a lot of merchants are very, very excited about this is being able to have native exchanges and returns conversationally through chats and emails rather than just giving them a portal link. How are we going to incentivize that customer to feel like they're getting their personalized experience? People love when they get exceptions. It's like, how do you make every experience feel like they have been treated one of one, even if it's for a return or exchange? That's something like we're uniquely positioned to do.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. So you've talked about AI, you talked about the sentiment analysis. We went through customer record a little bit. Stepping maybe back from Redo specifically, but as we get, middle of September, heading into Black Friday, Cyber Monday season, and as you're talking to merchants, what would you say is kind of like a checklist or things that people need to make sure is top of mind as they head into Black Friday, Cyber Monday
It's a
on the
great
support side
question.
specifically? Yeah.
I'm gonna try not just to say AI, but the first thing really is like take a look. Like, can we start testing the AI today in any capability across any softwares? How can you get AI to be your temp workers instead of finding three or four of them? I mean, with brands, we're finding that on average it costs them $7 a ticket when you look at salaries and benefits and hiring costs and all of those sorts of things, and the gaps between efficiency where they answer one ticket, then they have to wait for the next one. The AI is only providing as it's an outcome. So you're looking at $7 versus more of like 80 cents in interaction. And that's for our tool. But any AI tool, the multiples of efficiency there, it's just it's just always incredible. So first one is how do you get AI to be handling customer questions to increase sales and handle customer support? Period. The other things I would do is I would look
Can
through.
I interject real quick on that?
Yeah.
Okay. We just had a question come in from Peter as well. That's very relevant to what you're talking about. He says, how do you overcome some customers' resistance to engaging with AI, mostly due to like subpar AI experiences with other platforms? How do you overcome that where people just don't really want to interact with it if they know it's AI?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've experimented with a lot of different brands on the scale of transparency and the scales of interaction where like do we have it be Ali or do we have it be and Caller's AI. And actually, I've noticed that the more hyper transparent you are, it's always a better customer outcome. So in the example I was giving earlier, it says it's AI, there's a chat with a live team member. And what that does is it allows customers to self-select because there will be people, to your point, Peter, who are just incredibly resistant to AI, and you want to get them to a human as quickly as possible. But you will be servicing those types of customers better if you have the AI handling the other 60% who don't actually really care. They just want to know where their order is. So I think that hyper transparency is actually key and giving them a very easy way to talk to a human at all times. So for the live chat, we do that in emails. If that's more interesting on that side, what I recommend doing is having a unique signature and or even beginning the message with a very explicit statement that this is an AI system and that they can request a human at any time. And then our system, if anyone's ever gets frustrated or expresses a need for a human, it just immediately transfers. So hyper transparency is the answer.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate that, Paxton. I didn't mean to cut you off. That is, we were heading more into the next piece on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Wanted to make sure that we cover that question. So
That was a really
you
good
talked about
question.
AI. Anything else you would say is a key piece to make sure you have buttoned up as you head into holiday season?
Yeah, and so this is stepping away from the AI piece. This is more operationally with your team. But I would take a look at I would say that you want to be cognizant of first touch and first response time. That actually tends to be the most important for retention and lifetime value of a customer. And so if you can get your team in the habit of always responding immediately, even if it's a message as simple as like, hey, here's some general information. We'll be getting back to you in just a second. We see that customers leave with a much more positive sentiment. So working in first touches into your experience with your team is something that I'd recommend.
Love it. I think it goes back to what you're saying at the very beginning. People just want to know right away that they're going to be taken care of. And the second that there's some type of like, I've been forgotten, or oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go wait 10 minutes before I can even hear back from this brand, or not knowing even when you're going to hear back from them is more damaging than just telling them, hey, it's going to take me 15 minutes to go do this. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Yep.
Great. Peter, another question coming in. I'll read this out to you and then we'll jump to the next piece, Paxton. He says, can customers talk? Can customers talk the AI into a circle? Current issue with their gorgeous system. Customers didn't love the first response, asked it again a different way until ultimately the AI tool agreed and promised something that wasn't even possible. So I guess just kind of differentiation between what you're building versus gorgeous and the AI.
Yeah, I'll give you a like kind of a not promising the entire cake answer. I don't think AI is a perfect solution in most scenarios. I think that there's likely some scenarios that it won't get correct, but I also think that it's important to say, the answer to that question is, how do I have my humans handle this typically? Is there an escalation point that you've trained them where it's like when they have this, you always do that? In our particular system, it's very input in, input out. If it doesn't have information on something, it simply says, I can't do that, or I don't have information. Here's a team member. And so we've built in those guardrails for that specific scenario. But I think that just training AI generally, you should be a little less scared of it needs to be 100% accurate and more being clear when if ever, it is inaccurate. The same way that you're clear if your employee is inaccurate. So when an employee is inaccurate, you step in, you hey, this is the correct answer. We'll do this next time. Same thing with AI. The difference is that AI is actually even a little bit easier to command in that way. If you tell it explicitly in a knowledge-based system to not do something, at least in our system, it will explicitly never do that again.
It might be worth, Paxton, just another quick screen share if you can go show us like how do we set up those guardrails? How do we make sure that the AI is trained appropriately so that it's giving the right response or surfacing it to a customer service rep whenever that frustration point's happening with the customer and we can surface it to someone that's a human.
Yeah, great points. In the redo system, we're already natively training off of all of your tickets and website and a couple other things, that redo customer record we mentioned earlier. But where you get the control and the single best way to train the AI is going to be in the knowledge base. The knowledge base is as straightforward as adding in text into little pieces of knowledge. The shorter, the better typically. And this is going to be basically a direct injection into its operating system. But we do help you along this process. So what it's doing is it's actually self-critiquing its own responses. And we have a couple different ways that we surface this to you. But I always recommend to look at the suggested responses. So like, for example, this is something that they've noticed from their team has said recently. So customers can self-edit their order from the confirmation page. This is an example of something that's noticed human team members have been saying. It's like, hey, I probably need this in my base. So that's the best way and the most clear way. But then in that, you can also give it explicit non-instructions to not do certain things. Then if you're more worried about like tonality, style, that sort of thing, the personality is a direct prompt injection here where it's going to be able to change the personality. And then finally for micro adjustments, that's what you're going to be doing underneath this AI monitoring tab here, where you're going to be able to see the conversation and see what happens. So you can see this conversation. They said, hey, trying to process return, link's not working. Great. Here's the returns portal link, but also put in your email for further human help. It knows it's outside its capabilities, but maybe you didn't like the tone. Well, then you could say this response was mostly correct, and I'm going to say I would have changed the wording here slightly. So for most adjustments in guardrails, knowledge is your best answer. For micro adjustments on tonality, you can do that in the monitoring view.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. And so the idea of just continually training it, right, and being able to see, and it's probably a little bit heavier of a lift up front, but as you get more context and you provide it more information, then it's going to get better as it goes. And I think as AI just continues to get better at a rapid rate, anyways, things are going to continue to improve at an even faster rate, especially if you
Yeah.
can inject it with the right knowledge and the right pieces.
Yeah, that's the phenomenal thing is OpenAI is doing so much work for us. We've got
Yeah,
3,000 OpenAI engineers on the back end or Anthropic and those two models that we use. So yeah, if you're training that way, I mean, not to scare off merchants, but if you're even just spending 15 minutes in there a week or even 5 minutes a day, just quickly looking through a couple responses, the AI is going to perfectly relate to your feedback. So one piece of knowledge after a week or two, you're going to be in a really good spot.
Yep. Very, very good call out. We're coming up on time. Sierra, I see your question come in on a specific use case with you using Redo currently, and the AI struggling to identify orders when the order number is submitted. So I don't think we'll answer that live right now, but Paxton will take a note of it and make sure to connect with you offline on your specific use case here if that works.
Yeah, let's do it. And the order number, one thing I'll note there is we for data privacy, sometimes when somebody gives just an order number or just an email, we need the other one to clarify. Well, look at, yeah, I'll sync with you after Sierra and we'll train it up to work with that order number.
Perfect. Last piece, we got 4 minutes, Paxton. I want to hear what you have like on the horizon. Like, what are you most excited to build next to like make your product even better, right? Next quarter, next 6 months, what does Redo support look like?
Yeah, I think that what we're building towards is it's how do we build an AI that can be managed and maintained by an individual rather than a team, and that escalations simply look like approvals rather than creation of new jobs. That's the main goal. And the things that I'm most excited about are honestly a lot of our integrations with the other Redo products. So like for example, if you use the marketing emails, our sales agent can come in after that marketing email and provide additional context to the customer. We're going to expand that to SMS. There's limitations, for example, in Shopify, what we can do with orders. If you're on our operation management system, we can accelerate the shipping options and move forward there. With returns and exchanges, it's great to have a portal. It'd be even better to give them a one-to-one experience where they feel like they're getting taken care of, and then every time driving store credit exchanges while also having a happier repeat customer. So with every single one of our products over the next 6 months, we're building integrations one by one with each of them to be able to do these one of one things that make an AI more than just I guess an idea of personalization and then truly being that personalization. So those are the things that I'm honestly most excited about is continuing to deliver on that personalization piece and integrations in like the Redo ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. Getting closer to where the response feels like a person and not if I were to go into ChatGPT and type a similar response that like it's going to be almost apples to apples as to what you send back to the customer, but make it feel like it's not just a ChatGPT response, but like a one-to-one human responding just at a faster rate, more personalization. They understand you more holistically than even a human would because they have immediate insight into the entirety of your customer journey with a brand. So very exciting stuff. I think you're positioned uniquely as to other GMs where you're going to have a hand in literally everything that's happening across the org. And so very excited to see how you can continue pushing that forward. And I guess when we sync again in a couple of weeks, we'll see where we're at on progression and what you're continuing to build. So anything else, Paxton, that you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, I think that was great. Thank you, Brandon.
Okay, we're right at time. So appreciate your time. Appreciate your time, everybody. And we'll talk again soon.